My name is Richard Medhurst. I'm a British journalist and political commentator. Let me just start by saying thank you to the Islamic Human Rights Commission and all the organizers for putting together this event. Well done to all of you out there marching in support for Palestine. I'm honored to speak here alongside the other distinguished guests. Unfortunately, I couldn't physically be there with you today. Nevertheless, I wanted to say a few words about Quds, or Jerusalem, and the situation in Palestine. The political landscape in the Middle East is changing, and at the center of it all is Palestine, is Quds, Jerusalem. This is at the center of everything, and it's the compass that guides us in the fight for liberation from Israeli occupation. After Trump's so-called Abraham Accords, the trend among certain Arab nations was toward normalization with Israel, and Saudi Arabia was widely rumored to be next in line. But just recently, Saudi Arabia struck a peace deal together with Iran, and this has quickly led to the formation of a very different political climate in the region. This peace deal, which was mediated by China, has made it possible for Saudi Arabia to go and do things like rapprochement with Syria and Yemen. This is good for everyone. It is good for the region, for the Arab world, and for Quds. Quds Day is also used to memorialize and remember General Qasem Soleimani, who fought for this cause and ran many of the resistance operations against Western and Israeli occupation. When Israel and the United States assassinated him, they were trying to cripple the resistance, but this didn't materialize. As a matter of fact, the opposite has happened. The resistance axis is now stronger than ever before. Iran, for one, has become more advanced in its military and defense technology. Take their drones, just for example. Last week we saw a unified response from Gaza, South Lebanon, and Syria, all in one fell swoop, which is unprecedented. At the same time, Israel is falling apart internally. Just as a side note, Netanyahu's government is dubbed the most right-wing and dangerous government in Israeli history. All Israeli governments are right-wing and dangerous. You can see what they're doing to the people. Now, Netanyahu is losing support internally. The Israelis are coming out to protest against him every week. And at the same time, the Israelis have to worry about resistance from within, from the Palestinians themselves. The factions in the West Bank and Gaza are united. This is one unified front that we are talking about. And yes, the Israelis are still backed by the United States, but Israel is no longer a top priority for Washington. You see, Washington is too busy fighting against Russia inside Ukraine and now looking to open yet another front against China using Taiwan. The United States is not thinking about Israel right now. Clearly, the situation is changing diplomatically, politically, and on the battlefield, and all of this to the betterment of Quds. Now, in this country, in Britain, the press are very, very dirty. The British establishment love to silence those who fight for Palestine by smearing them, by attacking their reputation, and so on. Jeremy Corbyn is just one example among many. If you do support Palestine and you criticize the Israelis for their behavior, they try to shut you down and they call you anti-Semitic. Do they even know what this word means? Semite? Arabic is a Semitic language. The Palestinian and Arab people are Semites. And if you are actively hurting them, killing them, occupying them, and working against them, that makes you anti-Semitic, not the other way around. And so when it comes to Ukraine, every second we hear about illegal annexation and international law. Well done. We've been talking about these things for 70 plus years. Where have you been? Where was your concern for Palestine? Israel has been illegally occupying Palestine and Syria for many decades. What have you done about that? Nothing. Nothing in the press, nothing from Western governments except funding that occupation and making excuses for it. So where are the rights for the Palestinians? Why don't you care for the rights of Syrians? Why does international law only matter for Ukraine, but all of a sudden, when Israel is illegally occupying Syria's Golan Heights and stealing its drinking water, stealing its gas and oil, using it as a staging ground to bomb Syria every week, why does international law not matter then? Or when Israel is illegally occupying the West Bank and launching deadly raids into Jenin, into Nablus, executing our young men in the street? Where is the international condemnation for Israel's barbaric siege and bombings of Gaza? Where's the international press when Israel is occupying the holy city of Jerusalem, beating Muslim worshippers in Al-Aqsa during Ramadan and beating Christian worshippers during Easter? Where is your outrage for them? There are countless United Nations Security Council resolutions explicitly stating that Israel has no right to be in Jerusalem, it must leave, it must withdraw, and its illegal occupation and so-called laws are, quote, null and void. But Israel doesn't care for laws. The Israeli settlers just walk in, take somebody's land by force through ethnic cleansing, and then have the nerve to turn around and start pointing fingers at the Palestinians and calling them terrorists, calling them anti-Semites. I mean, the arrogance of it all, the audacity. The only real terrorists here are the Israelis. Israel is not just apartheid. Israel carries out atrocities like ethnic cleansing. It commits war crimes in Lebanon, in Syria. It violates every international law, norm, and treaty that you can name. And while we're on the topic, the Palestinians have every right to resist an occupying force, whether by throwing stones, armed struggle, or any other means they see fit. This is their legal and moral right, an indefeasible right. Israel is by its very nature a colonial European settler project. It's no different from what the French did to Algeria. And the Algerians are staunch supporters of the Palestinian cause. During Algeria's War of Independence, the French murdered over 1.5 million of its people. And in the end, the French lost anyway. And an equal number of Frenchmen fled Algeria and ran back home to Europe. The South Africans, who suffered under racist apartheid, they all support Palestine as well because they too understand what European colonialism is. And their movement triumphed in the end as well. And so like them, you must stay the course, remain steadfast, and remember that Palestine too shall triumph in the end. That is the glory of Al-Quds. Nevertheless, we should not be too arrogant. We shouldn't count our chicks before they've hatched. But if there was one thing that you can count on, it's that occupiers always leave in the end. Every empire in history has tried to take Al-Quds for themselves, from the Romans to the British to the Israelis. And in the end, ultimately, they never triumph and they always have to retreat back to their countries. We must also take a moment to remember the Palestinian prisoners who are on hunger strike, those who have been martyred, who've given their lives for this cause, and all those who have been cruelly arrested by Israel and held under administrative detention, which can be renewed indefinitely. There is no trial. You are not even told what your supposed or alleged crime is. Remember, this is a law left over from the British Mandate in Palestine. And in 1917, Britain's Foreign Secretary, Mr. Balfour, issued a declaration stating that Britain would endeavor to create a so-called Jewish state in Palestine. Now, the United Kingdom helped establish Israel. And this is precisely why the United Kingdom and all of us have a responsibility to dismantle it and give Palestine back to the Palestinians. Wishing you all a happy Passover, Easter, and Ramadan Kareem. My name is Richard Medhurst. Thank you very much.